What's going on, guys? Lava here from the RigCast, and today I'll be covering part 3 of What If Deku Had the Sharingan. And quick shout out to anyone who liked slash subscribed and comment on the last video. Don't forget to do that for this video too. Shows your support, comment, views on the video, that sort of thing. Um, Not much to say. Oh, really quick thing. I made Deku's Sharingan ability Amaterasu just because we don't know, or at least I don't know Madara's. I searched it up and it didn't say he had one, or he had one, just we don't know it. So Amaterasu was just a safe one to go with. And that really covers everything I wanted to say in the beginning here. So moving on, last time I left off, it was right after the USJ incident, and Bakugou and Deku were in the hospital, but going past that, during the day off they got, it was the day or a week, whatever, which of the two. Deku was training us really hard, and Ochako was too. They were training together, getting their strength up. And around this time is also when Miss Raizawa announces the sports festival, which everyone in the class was excited for. So, that whole thing happens. But during the time it was announced, so in between the time it happened, the Edness announced and it happened, Deku and Ochako were just constantly training to get their strength up, especially Ochako, because she wanted to become a better fighter, and she knew Deku was good at that sort of thing, because he's a god at taijutsu. So he teaches her all of that sort of thing, and they come up with a. Oh, also really quick, since Deku was just gonna have the eternal Mangekyo, since Madara's chakra is inside of him and Madara had it. So I'm just saying he has it, since there's no brother or anything like that he can get the eyes from. So Madara, during like that time span, has been training Deku to use the Susanoo. And right now, Deku can use the full Susanoo, and if he like pushes himself all the way to the limit, he can cover it about 60% with armor from the humanoid Susanoo, which is just the second stage of it. And right now, he can also use about 30 to 40% of One for All, depending on how pushed he is. Because after the Nomu incident, where his body just pushed itself over his limit, it just increased his strength when he healed back. So going, since we know that now, and he knows how to use the Susanoo very well, just in fights and things like that. It's a very simple combo. All Ochako does is she uses her quirk on the Susanoo, making Deku able to move around quicker since it's not as heavy, that sort of thing. But it still has the same impact. So he just moves much quicker, while at the same time she's inside the Susanoo with him, and he's protecting her from. Well, the Susanoo is protecting both of them, but you know what I mean. Also, during this time, the relationship is just growing astonished, like because they're spending so much time just training, that relationship just progresses a lot faster than in the show. So now that covers what they did during the training. He also practices with Amaterasu, but just not as much as the other things. And he works on a genjutsu that kind of works like Tsukiyomi, but at the same time, it's not that OP. But it traps the person in a like small little time thing. I don't know. It's like I can't come up with a smart name for it, so just say Crow's Eye or something. Yeah, Crow's Eye, the genjutsu. That's what he named it, and it basically just puts the opponent under a genjutsu that where he doesn't have control of everything like in Tsukiyomi, but they're both just in like a pitch black room with and nope, and only Deku can see in there. So it's that sort of thing, but it's not 72 hours. It's more like 5 hours, just so Deku can, um, just get the enemy's morale down a bit and then get back in the fight. So other than that, I don't think I'm forgetting anything. So yeah, he trains with all aspects of his stuff too. Because like now I'm pretty sure he's basically mastered wind, fire, and lightning at this point, and he can use them all in conjunction. And he's working on another type, but find out about that later. So going back to the school, it would be the incident where like all of the other studies and all that are waiting outside the door for them to go. And Bakugou says a smart ass thing where he's like, "You extras get out of the way," which or something. He said something. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said something that got the whole crowd pissed off. So then Deku comes up and tells Bakugou to calm down, and Bakugou's just not having that. So he just storms off. But then Shinso walks out, and Deku immediately just is like, this guy he gives off some weird vibes. So that whole thing happens where Shinzo starts talking crap back to Bakugou, and a fight almost breaks out. But Deku just stops both of them by just stepping in between. Tells them to save it for the sports festival. Everyone else that was there in the hallway is just staring at this altercation, and I'm not that sure of if anything too major happens between, but there's a few things I guess I could talk about, which is All Might still tells Deku how this is his time to shine and all that, but Madara already told him this is when he can really unveil his true power and show the world how strong he is. So with that, Deku, so I they're gonna have that little altercation in the locker room as well between Todoroki and Deku, where Todoroki says, "I think we both know who's stronger here. It's me." And then Deku's like, "Are you sure about that?" And they kind of just have a stare down of because both of them think they're the strongest, but at the same time. So that whole little altercation happens, and then they butt heads a little bit. But this is when everyone's walking out, and obviously they're all in their UA uniforms, like the gym uniforms, I think it was, or like the blue jumpsuits or whatever. They're all walking out, and President Mike is like, "Man, Class 1A." So they all go out, and everyone's looking in the stand. Everyone from the stands looks down and just sees, like they can sense that there's some really powerful kids there, out of the group. It's a good amount of hero potential. So they all sit down. Midnight gets up on stage, and everyone comments on how the suit she's wearing is pretty revealing. And then after this, they announce the first challenge, or you know what I mean, and it's the race. So everyone gets up, gets to the starting position, and Deku immediately activates about 25% of One for All, and he just once the horn blows off, it was something like once the horn blows off, Deku immediately jumps up onto the wall and puts chakra in his feet and starts running on the wall above everyone. Since that whole first part was just so to see if they could get past the simple thing of pushing each other because it's so cramped in there. But since Deku was able to just go above everyone, that's what he did. This immediately put him in first place, which got Todoroki and Bakugou pretty pissed. So Todoroki just starts putting out even more ice, which, and then which causes Bakugou to start using explosions. So they're very rapidly speeding up on Deku, and he sees this. So he uses Shadow Clone Jutsu, and it's like what the kind of thing Boruto does, where he blasts himself forward with Wind Style Gale Palm. So Deku does this, and since he's a lot more experienced with Wind Nature now, he can go a lot further. So he does that, making the distance even farther. But then that's when Bakugou uses his explosions, and he's basically really caught up. But then this causes Todoroki to get even more mad, which somehow, he goes a lot quicker too. So they're still neck and neck basically. And this is whenever and there's people behind them, but all that matters right now is these three. Oh, and Ochako is also doing a lot better. She's like in 6th or 7th place because she's using the training that Midoriya taught her to get ahead of other people. So they all go forwards, and that's when the robots come out, and Bakugou, Todoroki, and Deku just easily get through out past all of them by just destroying the ones in the way. Because all Deku has to do, he just is kicking them to the side using the motions he copied from Ida during the Heroes vs. Villains training. So they keep going, and that's when the zero pointer shows up, and this kind of causes everyone to stop for a second. But Deku just activates the Mangekyo. Well, Eternal Mangekyo, but I'll just say Mangekyo because it's shorter. He activates that and then jumps up with One for All. And he uses he it's called I'm sorry, it's the dragon, yeah, the dragon flame punch or something like that. Dragon, yeah, the dragon flame punch. The thing that I talked about last time, where he uses fire style, fire dragon, wraps it or dragon fists. I'm sorry, I forgot that. I came up with it, I forgot, but he uses a fire dragon fist, and then it said this time, but now instead of just being like normal flames, he covers the fire and Amaterasu. He covers like half of the dragon and Amaterasu to make it more potent. And he just takes out an entire zero pointer with this, and he doesn't have to add any more moves after that since Amaterasu just burns it almost immediately. So the zero pointer in front of him just collapses, and everyone in the stands is just watching this in amazement because they're like, this kid just took out that robot in no time at all. So Bakugou just flies over, not flies, but uses explosions to get over them, and Todoroki uses his ice to blast them down like in canon. And Ochako is just able to avoid everything, and everything else happens like in canon, like Tetsu and Kirishima get stuck under, but thanks to their quirks, they're able to get out, which is pretty nice. So continuing the race, I don't remember the next portion, but I'm pretty sure it's just, the next portion was the big. So this is when the little canyon thing happens, and Deku just uses Scale Palm again to get across with that in combination of Shadow Clones. But once he's about 50% through the canyon, he just uses One for All about 30% and launches himself forwards using the air pressure created, which gets him across. But this is when Mei Hatsume uses her technology to just, I think it was, she like just glided over the little rope or whatever it was strung across. So she does that, which gets her put ahead quite a few places. But and then and Todoroki and Bakugou just use their quirks the same way they've been doing. Bakugou's just constantly using explosions to go through the air and that sort of thing. And Todoroki's just using ice to get across because he doesn't need to really use the thing. Then Ochako, she just is able to get across by she just gets across some way she learns from Deku. I can't think of anything, but yeah, she gets across still in 6th or 7th place, and with that, they get there, and I'm pretty sure the next part is the bomb part, where all the explosions are. And Bakugou does actually hit Deku on the side with an explosion, which causes him to go off a little bit. And he lands on a bomb. He lands right next to a bomb, and by the time he gets up pretty quickly, but Todoroki and Baku are moving so quickly that they just are so far ahead. So he looks, and he gets the same idea in canon, and he gets all of the mines. He gets a bunch of mines together, and a few people pass him are just wondering what he's doing. So when he has about 20 or 30 bombs underneath him, he activates the Susanoo rib cage and jumps on top of them, and he's just propelled through the air, far ahead everyone else, including Todoroki and Bakugou. And he lands right in front of them, and with the Susanoo still activated, or the ribcage still activated, he lands almost perfectly. He lands unscathed, and then he activates about 40% of One for All on his legs and leaps forward, and he basically just he passes the finish line once he does that, making him the winner of the first event. And then Todoroki got second, and Bakugou barely got third. So that's that. And then Ochako ended up getting about 5th place. And everyone else, I don't remember everyone else's, but there's just some guy. There's someone from class 1B or something in fourth place, and then May and them got. I don't remember what place. I'll just say May got eighth place. I don't know about everyone else though, so I'll just get to the next part. Yeah, the next part they get back, and the next part's the Cavalry Battle. Well, Midnight announces it's going to be the Cavalry Battle, and she announces Deku's going to have a million. I think it's a million points on his head since he won, and everyone just kind of glares at him, and he's already coming up with a plan to get them. So he doesn't even approach Ida because his plan doesn't involve him. But who he does approach is May. Well, May approaches him since she wanted to get her product out, and he won, so it get her more success or that sort of thing. And then Ochako just was like, "Why don't work together?" So that's when all three of them approach Tokiyami, and he joins the group. So they all come together, and they start formulating a plan on what they should do. And Deku gives his idea, and they all kind of nod in agreement for that they should do it. So I think they all had to put it on. No, not all. Deku wouldn't have to, but what they all do is they put on the boots that they made that makes them float, and then they all got ready. They all got their head. They got their $1 million headband, so they're all ready. And Deku asked Tokiyami to have Dark Shadow come out for a second. And what Deku does is he puts him under a very slight genjutsu, which just makes him think that it's a lot darker. And it makes him think everything's a lot darker than it is, making him a lot stronger. And with that, the Dark Shadow grows in size by not double, double. He gets way bigger, and it's just everyone thinks he's rampaging, but at the same time, Tokiyami is still able to have control thanks to it. Since the sun is actually out, he has a lot of control, but Dark Shadow think it's dark, so it's that sort of thing. So he has control over it still, so he's not gonna go rampaging or nothing like that. So this is about the time when the round starts, and everyone immediately goes for Deku's team, but they start floating. But what Deku does is he uses the Susanoo and puts all of the humanoid parts of the Susanoo. Like he puts all the Susanoo on Dark Shadow, reinforcing it, making it armored, very powerful, kind of like what Madara did to Kurama whenever he fought Hashirama, that sort of thing. So Dark Shadow is completely covered in Susanoo, making it probably 5 times stronger, because now it's not going to be affected even by other things that put off light. So this whole thing, Bakugo is getting other people's headbands and just getting his team's points up, putting him about the same place as Todoroki, they're not doing the exact same thing, but they're just I don't remember exact who's on his team, but they're just getting whoever tries to come by them to get their stuff. They're playing more defensive and they're aggressive right now. Oh, and they have the same. I really remember Ida being on there, and I think maybe I don't know. No, maybe that will come into play later. I know Ida was definitely on his team though. So they're playing defensively, and about 3 minutes in, Deku and his team are still up in the air. So they're just fending off. If anyone tries to get long distance attacks, Dark Shadow just gets in the way, and nothing's even able to harm. It's like everything that they throw at Dark Shadow is just bouncing off because of the Susanoo. So that whole thing is just going on. He's blocking all the attacks coming from everyone else. And about this time, Bakugou looks up and sees that no one's able to touch Deku's, and he kind of gets pissed about this. And Deku's just scanning everything as quickly as possible with the Sharingan, telling Tokiyami and Dark Shadow where attacks are coming from. and he says Bakugo's coming in hot, and Bakugo does the same thing he does in canon, where he uses the explosions to get in the air and attack them. And Bakugo assumed that Dark Shadow was going to be affected by his explosions, because he kind of had a little intuition that it might affect him. But since the Susanoo is completely covering Dark Shadow, the explosions don't even affect him, and Bakugo is just basically slapped to the side, falling back to his team, and he catches himself before he hits the ground, and he lands with his team. This is when Todoroki looks up and is like, because he's not trying to impress his dad, but he's trying to prove that he doesn't need the fire to get him. So this is when, but what? Oh, I forgot something. I'm sorry. Bakugo managed while he was up there to hurt one of Mei's rockets, so they start going off course a little bit, and they start floating down since their rockets aren't keeping them up, and they touch the ground. And when they do, Deku creates some shadow clones in order to fend off the other people. And right now, he doesn't know how to have the shadow clones. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm just gonna say right now, shadow clones can't have Susanos, and only the wood clones can. Just so Deku can't just spam that. But what he does do is he has one of the shadow clones use wind style, and the other one use fire style, and they just are keeping people away with that. But Todoroki's team is coming in hot, and he blocked some of them off. He blocked one of their pathways off with ice, and by this time, Bakugo's team had their things stealed by, not shit. I don't think, no, it was stealed by that Monoma from Class 1B. I think that's the guy's name, the guy who can copy quirks. So that whole interaction happens between those two, where Bakugo gets his stuff back, gets his points back from him, and kind of whoops Monoma up. But then Bakugo gets into the little ice arena Todoroki created, where he's facing off with Deku, and they're just at a standstill right now, no one making a move. And Dark Shadow's just, since he's he's a lot bigger than it was, so he's able to block off all of the ice attacks that are coming from Todoroki. But so no one's able to even touch him. But this is when there's about 40 seconds left in the round, so Ida looks at Todoroki. It's like, I'm about to use a move, but it's gonna cost me the ability to move. He'll move a lot slower than usual if he uses it, and it could make it where he can't move for a while. So Todoroki just says do it, so that way we have a chance, so we can win. And this is when Ida uses Reciprocal Burst, and he absolutely speeds towards them. But at the same time, Dark Shadow is just, they get past Dark Shadow, but this is when Deku just looks at Ida straight in the eye and puts him under his Eye of the Crow Genjutsu, which just, it's not too much of it. It's a very advanced Genjutsu, but it doesn't do much special. What it does to Ida is it just makes everything pitch black immediately, basically making him seem like it's almost basically blinding him, which makes him go off course. He runs into one of the ice walls, causing the people in his team to shake around, and the Genjutsu runs off. But then by this time, they already have lost about 10 seconds because of the trick that was pulled on them, and Bakugo's team's coming in hot for Deku again, and this is when a clash happens between Deku and Bakugo, and Deku gets an air blast ready, and he blasts Bakugo back using Gale Palm, which catches Bakugo off guard. But since he's Bakugo, he's able to keep he lands fine with his team, but Todoroki's getting really heated. He gets really pissed, and he just rushes as quick as he can his team at Deku, and they're moving very quickly. So in Dark Shadow, I know there's not a limit with Dark Shadow, but there is a limit for Deku Susanoo right now. So the Susanoo gets off of Dark Shadow, causing the explosions Bakugou is making over at them, Dark Shadow shrinks in size and returns back to Tokiyami. And this is when Deku and Todoroki have their whole little clash. And they don't get Deku's headband, but Deku does force Todoroki to use his fire, causing him to mess up. Like he did when he uses fire, that sort of thing. And he did this by just putting about 50% on One for All in his arm, because he can use like more than that, like 30 or 40 when he can use 30 or 40 when he's in full Cowling, but he can use about 50 if he's only putting it in one limb. So he gets that blast ready, and Todoroki, just feeling the power of the punch, uses some of his flames to get him off to cause Deku to go off course, which it does. But Deku easily is able to maneuver back to his team, and by this time, you hear the buzzer go off, and everyone in the round's over. Deku's team got first place. They all celebrate that. The other two teams, Bakugou and Todoroki's, are just positively pissed that they lost the match. So that's that. So Deku won 2 times in a row for the previous 2 things. So this is when that like hour-long break or whatever it was between the things where all like Class 1A girls got in the cheerleading costumes, that whole thing. Everyone that was going to be in the next final round, though, goes to the back to get ready. And this is when Todoroki confronts Deku, and he kind of brings up the All Might thing again, since he saw that Mon they had, which Deku just refuses it just profusely. And this is when Todoroki opens up a bit more about his past to Deku and how his father's not, was mean to him or whatever, that sort of thing, why he doesn't want to use his fire. So this kind of causes Deku's whole, he wants to help his friend type thing. So that whole little clash happens. And I don't think anything else happened between that and the third round. So let's just get to the third round. In the third round, it's going to be everyone getting ready. It's starting up. It's Deku versus Shinso, which is going to be an interesting round since, Deku's almost immediately he's not going to answer because Ojiro told him about Shinso's quirk and that not to answer any questions he might ask. So Shinso's by the time Deku just starts slowly walking towards him, and Shinso keeps talking a bunch of smack about everyone in his class. But then he starts saying all sorts of things about Tower's weakling. So Deku just stands still and looks straight at Shinso in the eye, puts him under his Genjutsu, except this one's way more powerful than the Eye of the Crow. This isn't even Deku. This is a Genjutsu Madara created that's very similar to Tsukiyomi. Because the way I see it, Vince Modern about the infinite Tsukiyomi, he probably knew how to do something similar to Tsukiyomi. But the thing about this Genjutsu, it uses a lot of Deku's chakra, but at the same time, he's willing to use it for this. And he puts Shinso in this Genjutsu. He doesn't change anything about the world, but what he does, he has... he just I'll put it in this way. He releases a bunch of Madara's chakra / killer intent and just causes everyone in the stadium to feel it. Well, in the Genjutsu world, he's basically talking to Shinso, and Shinso's explaining everything that's happened. But before they start chatting, Deku he basically scared Shinso to almost shit himself, because he showed Madara, Madara was basically standing behind Deku, and Deku made it seem like they were still in the arena at that point. So I'm explaining this a bit bad, but what happened is he put Shinso under the Genjutsu, showed him the illusion of Madara standing behind him, terrifying Shinso because he can just feel how powerful Madara is. But then after that, Shinso and Deku Shinso explains to Deku why he wants to be a hero and be in the hero course. prove everyone around him wrong, that he's not a monster, that sort of thing. He doesn't want to be a villain, that whole thing. Deku comes to an understanding, puts the Genjutsu comes out. Everyone in the stadium still feels the killer intent, but he's not. But as he gets out, he says, "The thing is, Shinso, I want to be a hero too." So he doesn't even activate One for All or the Sharingan. He just he just pushes Shinso out of. He just kicks Shinso out of the ring, causing him to win the match. But Shinso isn't as mad as in canon, so him and Deku have a bit more of an understanding since they talked for a very long time in the Genjutsu world. And now I think the next match was Todoroki versus the Tape Dude. I can't remember any more prominent fights in the first round, but everyone goes ahead. Everyone that won their fights it was in canon. So I'll just move on to Todoroki versus Deku. So in this fight, it's gonna be a lot different. Since so Todoroki does the same thing and shoots a big ice blast, but this time all Deku just activates the as much as the Susanoo as he can, so that way he doesn't get hit by the ice. And Todoroki thinks he won. He doesn't think he won, but he's thinking that really damaged Deku. But Deku just bursts out of the ice with the Susanoo, and everyone is not terrified, but they're wondering what the heck is this demon-looking thing. And Deku's Susanoo is green, kind of like light green. It kind of looks like Shisui's Susanoo in terms of the color. And I guess you could, I'll just go. It looks like Shisui Susanoo since they're both green, and that sort of thing. So he looks over with inside the Susanoo. He looks at Todoroki, comes out of the Susanoo because he doesn't want to waste his time limit with it, because he can use it for about 10 minutes without like losing a bunch of chakra. And he walks out of it, and just Todoroki is just shooting ice after ice, but Deku is just using the ability to evade it with the Sharingan, and he just keeps dodging it. So he uses that, and eventually he punches Todoroki very violently, I guess you could say, in the gut, launching him backwards. Todoroki catches himself in the ice. And this is Deku starts saying his whole thing about how Todoroki's not using his full power. He never beat him without using his power, and how he should use his flames because it's his quirk, not his father. And this is when a little flashback happens with Deku. This really happened like 15 minutes before 50 minutes ago, but not 50. But it's happened before the match when Endeavor tells Deku to ensure Todoroki uses his flames, except this time he talks back almost, and he just says shit back to Endeavor, saying how shitty he is, and then walks off. So Todoroki is just getting even more mad, but then he comes to the realization that Deku's right. He will lose this if he only uses his ice. So this is when Todoroki activates his flames, and he shoots him at Deku almost immediately, but all Deku does is he uses fireball jutsu, but instead of just shooting out, he keeps firing it, keeps the flames going out of his mouth, causing the flames to go off course. And once the flames dissipate, they just kind of stare at each other. Todoroki getting himself ready, and this is when he does the attack where he uses the ice and fire at once, and he's charging up the fist, and Deku's charging up too. He pulls out. What he does is he uses the Susanoo, just like the Susanoo arm, and then engulfs that with the dragon flame, covering it, and he charges at Todoroki. And this is when Cementos, or the cement dude, he starts trying to form a barrier because he knows this could result with one of them dying. But their power is so attacked, they easily pass through it, and they clash. And it's just such high flames and heat that it's causing like heat ripples or whatever it's called. to just like go throughout the stadium, and everyone is just warmed up immediately to such extreme temperatures. And that's when De- they were evenly matched at this point in terms of the raw flames. So Deku uses the Susanoo and engulfs the flames. He engulfs his flames with Amaterasu, and he easily overpowers Todoroki, knocking him all the way out. He knocks him with such force that he flies out of the ring and he wins the match. But he used but Amaterasu with this uses like all of the Mangekyo abilities use a lot of chakra for him. So he doesn't collapse, but he kind of just gets on his knees from exhaustion. And he's breathing heavily. And he gets up. They announce he won the match because, everything started to. They could actually start singing, and they saw Todoroki was out of the ring. So Deku wins, he walks out. Todoroki goes to the hospital, not the hospital, but he goes to Recovery Girl. That covers that. I think the next fight I'll cover is Bakugou versus Ochako, since I don't remember there being other major fights, and there's not much for me to cover in this one, but at the same time there is. So what's gonna be different now is Ochako's gonna be way stronger. At the same time, Bakugou is way stronger. So they're not equals, but she puts up, so the round starts and Bakugou shoots off an explosion immediately to disorient her. But she's so used to fighting Deku and his fire that she avoids that, and then as she was going to touch him with her quirk, he blasts her away, but at the same time she keeps grabbing and using her quirk on the rubble that he is bouncing off, kind of like we should in canon. But now she's also using that floated rock and things to bounce around. She's using the floating rocks to bounce around, making it harder for the explosions to hit her. And she comes in, and she's coming in from the top, like from the top down, so that way like she's going down at a very fast velocity at Bakugo, and he shoots off an explosion up to try and get her, but she puts her hands in front of her, going through the explosion, and she punches Bakugo as hard as she can, and the attack hits him right in the face, which causes him to back, which causes not get knocked up. He backs up after getting hit by that, and she lands. She lands not unscathed, but she got a very good hit on him. And as he's stunned, she uses the rocks she had been collecting from the attacks that were thrown at her, and those all fall and land on Bakugo. And he gets hit by the first few, which cause some scratches and bruises, but he uses his explosions to get the other ones away. Sorry about that, there was an interruption. But yeah, so Bakugo uses his explosions to knock the rubble away, and Ochako goes in for the finishing blow with her punch. But he gets a controlled blast in his fist and just knocks her backwards, basically flying her out of the ring. But after he does this, he had exerted so much energy and he was hit so much, he collapsed from everything. So she lost, but she was very close to winning, because if Bakugo had missed that shot, she would have won. So he collapsed. He's knocked out. He's not knocked out, but almost all of his energy is just drained. So Ochako gets knocked out, and Deku uses the body flicker technique and is by her side almost immediately before even the teachers could get there. Alright, so there's another interruption. But so Bakugo wins, he's exhausted, and who did I can't remember. My brain just went blank. I don't exactly remember who we fought, but I'm just gonna say that Tokiyami loses his next fight with Bakugo because of that, because his explosions and all of that. But Deku carries Ochako to Recovery Girl to the nurses, and she heals her up, and he waits by her side until she wakes up from her injuries. And by the time that happens, it's the final round because Deku fought his battle and he won all of his fights with the people he fought. So Tokiyama, I'm just gonna say Tokiyami's in third place, and then going on from that, because all the other fights go to canon. And so moving on to Bakugo versus Deku, they're both going to be much stronger. They both are going to be almost at full thing since Recovery Girl did that. So let's just say that gives the Deku all of his chakra back. They launch at each other at like just so quickly, only in the pro heroes could keep up. And they just get in a battle that of pure taijutsu at first, them keeping up with each other. And that's when Deku bounces backwards. He already activated Sharingan immediately because he knew how strong Bakugou was. He shoots off Phoenix Feather Jutsu, trying to do the same move he did before. But Bakugou, knowing this, he dodges them and uses his explosions to get the last like little fireball off course. And Deku rushes forwards, activating the Susanoo, and kind of he uses the Susanoo arm to cover Bakugou's explosions that he fired at him, and he gets about 25% of one for on his legs, jumps up in the air, and as he's going down, he tries to use the Dragon Flame Fist against Bakugou. No Amaterasu, since that would just kill him. But Bakugou tries to knock him off course, but Deku's able to just go right through it since the Susanoo's covering him as well. But it's just like the rib cage, since he's not using the arm naked Bakugou for this attack. He knocks Bakugou. He punches him with the Dragon Flame Fist, causing just for Bakugou it's knocked back, and then that whole thing happens. But this is when Deku shoots off a wood clone. He can only use a single wood clone right now, but this is when Bakugou's kind of down, so he can't see it happening. So the wood clone goes underground. I don't remember what the jutsu's called, but it's the Earth style jutsu that allows you to travel underground, since it's one Deku's been working on, and he keeps fighting with Bakugou. They both shooting off similar attacks. Deku shooting off wind style, fire style attacks. And this is when the wood clone pops out behind Bakugou and kind of like not a Chidori slash or lightning blade, but the clone activates lightning all around, like just around his hand, and he shocks Bakugou to stun him, and kind of puts him in a bear hug from behind to get him to stand still. And Bakugou keeps struggling, and he's about to get free, but the real Deku is charging up about 50% of one for all, with wind style kind of reinforcing it as well, causing even more of a pushback, since that's what he's trying to do against Bakugou. And he charges as quick as he can at Bakugou while Bakugou's struggling. And at the last moment, he switches it from his arm to his one of his legs, and he hits Bakugou with a cannon again, knocking him out, except this time it's reinforced by 50% of one for all and wind style in the wind style nature. So this just knocks Bakugou out of the ring easily, and both of them fought. It was honestly a pretty close battle between them, like because they're rivals, so their power level is almost at the same. But Deku was just able to get a surprise attack on Bakugou using the Shadow Clone, or not Shadow Clone, the Wood Clone. So Deku uses that, and then he's announced the winner of all three of the festival events, and they're all standing up on the podium. Bakugou's pissed off again because he got second place, and he's just sitting there, oh, mad. And then Tokiyami's in third place. So they all get their medals and that sort of thing. Oh yeah, and Ochako was able to heal because she was watching from the stands. So so I'm gonna end it here, since that's basically the end of the sports festival. So yeah, So thanks for listening. This don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This has been Lava from the RigCast. See you later.